This week's episode is brought to you by the Spirited Advocate Podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry, and with me, because it's Thanksgiving, is a real-life turkey. Say hello, turkey. Nobody has to worry about anything. He's already been pardoned, and he's safe. How are you going to live your life this week, turkey? Yeah, well, I know. You really shouldn't. You shouldn't do that. That's cannibalism. That's not good stuff. Swan has the week off. He'll be back next week after the holidays. Happy Turkey Week. Happy Turkey Day to everybody who's in the U.S. and anybody outside of this region. Well, happy just another week, I guess. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week, as you always do. But hey, if you are a new listener to the podcast, welcome. If you have not yet, please subscribe so that new episodes hit your feed every single week without delay. We appreciate anybody who is new here to the show, and also all of you returning folks. You're just the best. You know that? I mean, our new listeners are pretty good. I just don't know you all that well yet. But, you know, all relationships start with the first time the other people meet them. Anyway, I'm a little giddy because this week's episode features one of my favorite interviews that I have gotten to do on the podcast, period. It's funny because I feel like Thanksgiving week episodes have been kind of notorious for, excuse me, for really fun and exciting interviews. The first year that we did this was with Dixon Deadman of Kentucky Al, and he was just extremely gracious with his time, and now is a great friend of the show. And this year, we have an interview with Neil Giraldo, who is an award-winning musician, the husband of Pat Benatar, and just really a legend in the rock and roll scene. And we got to have a great conversation together. I'm going to go ahead and knock out one of our segments before we move into the interview itself, and that is, what have we been drinking recently? And recently, oh my goodness, I am so excited to have gotten to try the bottled version of our very first podcast official pick. Was that phrased the right way? I'm pretty sure it was. And it was this New Riff bottle. It's going to be released to the folks, sent out to the folks who prepaid for it earlier on this year, a couple months back. And I'm super excited about this pick. It's a New Riff bottle. It's just over 4 years old, 106.4 proof. The label, well, the sticker rather, is just gorgeous. And it's so fun. It's just such a good time. You guys are really going to enjoy this bottle if you are able to still get one. We had a few extras that we weren't expecting in our pre-sale. So if those are still available, we will definitely get those out to some other folks. Shoot me a message at mybourbonpod or thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com, and we will be happy to see what we can do for you. As I said, we have this really fun interview with Neil coming up soon. But first, a word from this week's sponsor.
The Spirited Advocate podcast brings together people from all parts of the distilled spirits industry to talk about top issues facing everyone from distillers to consumers. Whether it's diving into how each spirit is made or chatting about their favorite cocktails, host Chris Swanger brings top leaders in the industry from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to Ireland and everywhere in between. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts or visit distilledspirits.org to learn more.
I am incredibly excited to be welcoming this guest to the show. Oh my goodness. This has been something that has been kind of, I would say, in a nebulous state of a dream for me, just wanting for this interview to happen. And finally it did, not just for the bourbon side of it, but for the music as well. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Neil. And is it Giraldo?
That's it.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. I was so worried I was going to mispronounce it.
You got that right, Peter. You got that right.
Oh, no, here we go. Before we started recording, Neil called me Peter. It was a whole thing, but Yeah, we're good
That's a
though.
long
We're
story.
good.
I hope I don't turn your your nebulous moment into a nightmare.
No, Neil, I'm super excited to be able to sit
Thank you.
down with you and get to talk not just about bourbon, but about your music, excuse me, your musical journey as well. I'm already getting
Thanks for
choked
having
up,
me.
but
Yeah.
I've only had a sip of rye so far.
I don't yet have enough. That's why.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's start out just by talking about you and who you are, because while you are well known in small to fairly medium circles, you're also very prolific in the music world, and now with your foray into bourbon as well, and not just bourbon, but rye and other spirits
Hmm.
included. But I want to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself as well.
Sure. All right. So I call myself just a racket maker from Cleveland, Ohio. That's all. Just having to get get lucky. Um, but yeah, I started playing music when I was young, 6 years old. My parents gave me a guitar when I was six, with the idea that I can do duets with my sister who played accordion.
Sure.
And then we can entertain our family and friends at our house after church on Sundays, and yeah, gatherings, So
Right.
that's how I began. But I had a disruptive uncle in a very good way. He was only 4 years older than me, so that while I was learning Italian songs, he says, "Here, I think you need to listen to the Yardbirds. I think you need to listen to the Stones and the Kinks." And then,
Right.
before you knew it, I was entering the rock world. And even before that, with Scotty Moore and Elvis and all the other things I listened to, when I was a kid.
Sure.
We used to get singles, 45s from the
Right.
Woolworth store. And my mother would buy my sister anything she wanted for $1, and I could get anything I wanted for $1. So I would get the singles, or 99 cents. So there's 10 singles wrapped in cellophane.
Right.
So you didn't really know what was on the inside of these. So you knew, but even then I didn't know. I was just, 8 years old. Once I was getting John Lee Hooker. I was getting Muddy Waters in there. I had no idea. I was getting all these great records, and I would just put them on, listen to them, flip them over, and then I'd play the other sides.
Sure.
So I was fortunate to have my uncle as an inspiration and a guy that really helped mentor me. It was really
Yeah,
important. And
absolutely.
thankful to my parents. So I've been musical my whole life. That's all I've ever known. And thank God, because I'm a horrible carpenter. But my father was a carpenter, Sicilian carpenter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so when I used to get kicked out of school and things like that, he would say, "Come on, you're going to work with me. Grab me that 2x6." And I'd say, "What's a 2x6?" I don't know what that is. So I got lucky, and I was able to have a career in music, which I love.
Tell me about the accordion over your right shoulder too. Is that one that belonged to your sister?
The box? No, that's a button box. No,
It's just the box?
Yeah, that's just the box. Yeah, I actually started playing accordion because I was when my sister would play, her timing wasn't very good, so you're out of time. I was a producer even back then. You're playing out of time, so give me that thing. And as a little kid, I would put it, and I'd play the keys, and I'd throw the other end of the bellows over, and I would play, and I'd lift the bellows up, play a little more, and throw it over.
That's great.
Yeah, it was
Do you,
funny.
do you still have your first guitar?
No, I don't. And that was an acoustic
Yeah.
harmony. I don't have that one, and then I got an electric after that, which was, what the heck was that? A K or something?
Sure.
Yeah, it's just
It
it worked.
It's funny how, and this is very much true of bourbon as well, but the older guitars, those vintage guitars, the ones that people were just like, it's nothing. It's the K, the harmonies and whatnot. You go down to the shop and get one for $10, $15, and people
Correct.
now are like, that's what I want. I want that piece because it feels so much more than just this old instrument. It feels like a work of art. It feels like a piece of history.
Well, that's true, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why that is. One day I shut my emails off because they're so one doink.
That's fun.
Go back here. The thing is with the blues greats, the people that we listened to growing up as a guitar player,
Absolutely.
they were playing on not expensive equipment. And the other thing, they weren't always in tune. But see, that was the beauty. There's a note here, and to the left is one side, a note to the right. You get the blue note on either side,
Absolutely.
whichever one you prefer. So a lot of times you're trying to emulate that with, I see people getting real expensive guitars, young kids trying to play the guitar, and they want to sound like that. You're not going to sound like that.
No.
You gotta. It's first of all, it comes from your heart, your soul, and your hands. So,
Absolutely. The first time that anybody ever explained to me that what we hear on Robert Johnson records, is more than likely not what it actually sounded like, just because of the tape speeding up, or something was out of tune, or that just floored me. But then you think about these people now, like the British musician Jacob Collier, who just flourishes in semitones, and he flourishes in that space in between notes
correct.
too. And it's just fascinating to me, not just as a music lover, but also as a musician, because I it in songwriting, it's not something I always think about.
Correct.
And I get, as so many of us do, caught up in everything's got to be perfect middle C, exactly in tune.
Right. Well, the problem with this, and a little bit of the problem with the modern music that's going on, especially in the pop market right now, is people are getting so used to perfectly sung vocals,
Absolutely.
perfectly timed mechanical things. So there's no ebb and flow. There's no danger, because it's all lined like this. I tell young people when they're asking me questions about producing, songwriting, all these things, I says, if you should hear a Rolling Stones outtake CD, I say CD because not records, bootlegs, and hear what each guy is doing on their own, you think it would make no sense, but together,
Absolutely,
it worked.
And even going further back, I mean, listening to the Beatles during their recording sessions, rather, that blows my mind. All these little pieces and all the layering and that musical wall of sound that they created during their tenure. It just baffles me.
The beautiful part about that is that George Martin was able to let them just go and experiment,
Absolutely.
put it in those places that need to go, and that's a critical thing. That's one thing. When I was growing up, I never thought of myself as like a virtuoso on any instrument. I play guitar, I play piano, I play drums, accordion, I play many different instruments. I only used them as tools, because even at a very early age, it was always about parts.
Absolutely.
And this is what goes with the Spirits Company too, which we'll get to as well. But
Yeah,
it's
of
all
course.
where you see things. Some people do it with colors. They hear things in blue, red, green, yellow, these. I don't. I do landscape. When I write a song, or if I arrange something else or produce something, I know where everything is going to be before we do it.
Right.
I have it. It's in my head. I got it. I have it perfectly where it has to go. And I also show people too, when I do little seminar things, is that if you remove one little, maybe a guitar riff or a little piano thing, you remove it from a song, can make a dramatic change in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
So it's all about little pieces,
When I talk about this same concept with other bourbon crafters, other spirits crafters, the one thing that always kind of comes up, and I attribute this mostly to Dixon Dedman, who founded Kentucky Owl.
It's a good one.
Kentucky Owl, yes. And I'm very lucky to call him a friend too. So,
That's a good one.
but he'll say, with blending, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2.
Correct.
Sometimes it equals 5. Sometimes it equals -30. And there's no exact science to it. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was the guitarist Matt Stevens said, creating an album is like trying to find the door to Narnia. It's never the exact same way twice.
Correct.
And I'm always fascinated by the intricacies of producing. What truly got you interested in the production side of creating records, creating albums?
Yeah, one song in particular, Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis Presley. When I heard that coming out of a Wi-Fi, my parents' hi-fi system, I was walking down the street, the lonely street, to Heartbreak Hotel. The bass was so rich. Elvis's vocal was so separated, had a great reverb on it. It was just, the piano was just, it just got me. And I became bigger fans of Sam Phillips, George Martin. I got of the producers versus the players, because I started doing where I learned, obviously I listened to people's playing and I would, emulate that. But then I would listen and I'd figure out what part are they missing in there? What would they do if maybe you should try this. So I tried to always try to come up with different parts.
Sure.
And it was just the way I was wired. I didn't just listen to rock music. I listened to all different kinds of music. I love the whole gambit of music, every part of it. So instruments are tools. I don't care if I've come up with maybe something really cool to play, but if it doesn't fit the song, it's not staying. It's going away. I don't have any problem with any of that. Any problem at all.
Do you see the kind of heart and soul of people like George Martin in modern music? Do you find that there's those styles of producers?
Well, there's one person I like a lot, and that's Jack White, because he's disruptive. He's got great sensibilities. He plays a bunch of instruments. He's not afraid.
No.
And I really like where he goes with things. It's unexpected. There's a disruptive part of music, which I always liked. I like to be that disruptor. I can't tell you how many songs I recorded, handed into the record company, and they said, we're not going to release it. I said, not going to change it. And then eventually they would release it.
Sure.
I'm a hit, because I refused to change it, because in my heart, I knew it was right. It's the same thing like with bourbon when we do the tastings. And, they got all these different taste profiles. So they send me these bottles, or if I'm in person with them, I do, I get the nose, I taste it. Nah, that's not white, And then you hit the one that you think is great.
Right.
And the part of a music thing that's really interesting too is you can't fool yourself, and you try to. Many times I was in a studio, we cut a track, no matter who it is, what I do with Patricia or John Wade or Kenny Loggins and all these people that I work with, the Dellords, all these people, you kind of want to go, yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a hit. I don't know. I think once you start doing that, forget it. At least I try to do that. When it is, it's going to work. You just walk out and go, that's it. Not changing a thing.
So let's talk about your journey with bourbon as well.
Yeah.
When did that kind of start for you? What was the point where bourbon became it, or distilled whiskey became it for you?
Okay, we have to go back to the very beginning when I was 4 years old, 5 years old.
Here we go.
Grandpa Nunzio, who came from Bronte Catania, Sicilia. My grandmother and grandfather came to this country, went to New York first, was there for a while, and then eventually went to Cleveland because there was more jobs and more work there. So anyway, he had a still in his basement, and he would make grappa. He would make whiskey, wine. He did everything down there. And I'd sit in his lap, Nilo, he'd call me, here, try a little. And at 5 years old, I'm drinking Brodgut whiskey, So, and then my father took that on. He started making wine, from all kinds of stuff, plums, grapes. My neighborhood I lived, one side of the street was all Sicilian. The other side was Ukrainian. We always had... my neighbor, I couldn't pronounce his name, so I called him Mr. Jim. He lived to be about 100 years old. And he would make his own wine, and my mother would go, oh, you got to go pick Mr. Jim up. He fell down because he was on a stoop and fell. So I'd go pick him up, and his glass would be empty. He'd go, pour me some more, pour me some more. He'd go, here for you. And I would drink the wine. So I like spirits. So that was my very, very beginning, was that. And then how we came up with steel bending spirits, where I'm at now with this, is that I write besides writing songs, I write screenplays and treatments and various different ways of entertainment that way, because I love writing. I do it in the mornings. I love it like crazy. So I was working on a screenplay that was not a documentary, almost like a hybrid in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I posted on social media that I was thinking about doing this. Well, a friend of mine got a hold of me, speed the story up. A year later, he goes, "Are you ever going to do this?" I go, "Okay, let's meet." So I meet him. His name is Brian Canning. He's one of the founders with me of the company. And he says, "Well, why don't we get a whiskey or bourbon company to give us some seed money so we can make a trailer? And if we can do a trailer, we can get," because I wasn't trying to make a high budget film. I was trying to do an independent film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I met him and I said to him, I said, "Well, why don't we just start our own company? Why do that?" And he looked at me, he laughed because he knows I'm insane, like this. So I said, "Why don't we do it?" He goes, "Are you serious?" I go, "Yeah." So on May 16th, 2016, Steel Bending Spirits was born. I had the name. It just came to me.
Sure.
Steel Bend. I'm a steel bender. Steel Bending Spirits. Great. So the first incarnation was called Steel Bending Bourbon. And the sound of it was just awful.
Sure.
Who would drink a steel bending bourbon? It's like metal and horrible, right? So it's important to know the evolution of where the company went. So I was trying to come up with a name for a bourbon because I wanted to have a spirit that was challenging, a difficult one. Because people say, once I started, they go, "Why don't you just do a vodka, do a gin, do something?" I go, no. I want to challenge myself, because here's what I do, Perry. I challenge the listener always. I never dumb down an audience, ever. I challenge them. I want them to hear what I'm doing and go, "What the heck is he doing?" And then go, "I think I get it." "Oh, I get it. I love it." All right. So challenge, right? Challenge.
Absolutely.
So when we scoured the country for distillers, we ended up with Ari Zussman. And as soon as I met him, shook his hand, gave him a hug, I knew he was the guy. He was just as disruptive in the blending and spirits as I am in music. Mm-hmm. And the correlation between the two are identical, And when he was telling me, I can do some do some intricate, different ideas of blending to get you what you want. So I started putting the whole team together with all these different people, right? And I'm going to give you their names because I like to mention that in any podcast.
Yeah,
I do.
absolutely.
These people are the people that make this thing run. I love teams. Yes. I love sports, and I love music, and I love everybody has a place, and it's very, very important. We're all equal in the team. So I'll give you the names in a second. So the disruptive part, I loved, and every time I talk with Ari, we'd have so much of a synergy between the ideas of blending, trying different things. Our proprietary programs that we use to blend, to bring out that vanillin and that beautiful nose. To me, don't have a spirit if the nose is bad.
Absolutely.
Now, you are aware of grappa, I'm sure, right?
Yes, indeed.
Grappa can have some really rough nose, right?
It's funky.
Real bad. Real bad. So I'm going to guarantee you, Perry, and anyone that's listening, that I'm going to do a vodka that's going to smell really good. And it's going to taste really good. Somewhere down the line, in honor of Nunzio, my grandfather. Actually, we have the name. It's called Nunzio's Basement.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, Nunzio's Basement. And that'll be the whole story of the rollout of my Sicilian grandfather.
You might actually make a vodka drinker out of Fred Minnick at that point, too.
When I did Fred Minnick's podcast, it was so funny. I was talking about it. He goes, "Well, what else you got down the line?" I says, "Well, I'm going to be doing this, and I also have a vodka." He goes, "What? No." And then he started to show me all the vodka sucks and this, stuff.
Your Fred impression is spot on, by the way.
That's exactly what he did.
That's wonderful.
And I said, "Fred, let me just tell you something. I'm an honest guy. I believe in integrity. I'm not pulling it back. If I said I'm going to do it, you're going to get it. You're going to try it."
Oh, absolutely.
So the disruptive part was real fun with Ari, because we really had a strong tie together, him and I. And we talk about it all the time. He always asks, "Well, what is it like mixing a record?" Because you write a song, you arrange that song, you get the players or you play it yourself, you get the parts, you record that song, you produce the song, you mix the song, then you master the song. So by the time all this process is done, you're listening to it out of your phone. Okay? So it's a big process, but it's the same. It's really the same thing.
Sure.
We have these processes and blends that we're able to take some young bourbons and just through our process kind of speed up,
For sure.
the aging of it, which brings out that vanilla, that beautiful flavor and nose, which I love. I'm happy. I'm proud to say that we're blenders. I really am.
Sure.
I think the Scottish have been doing it forever. There's nothing wrong with it. And here's the thing too. We respect tradition. I do in music. All the kudos I give it to Robert Johnson, Buddy Guy, Son House. Name them, right?
Absolutely.
Name them all. If without those folks, there'd be no rock music in this country.
No.
Nowhere in the world. Okay, very important. So I like to be disruptive, and Jack White's disruptive. That's why I like him. He's not afraid. You can't be afraid. Just have no fear.
Speaking of Jack White in that way, absolutely reminds me of the way that he presented himself in It Might Get Loud.
Oh, it's great.
Great film, yeah. But
Great.
But just pitting him up against the edge.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Jack White, who is just down to earth, just going to beat the living crap out of his guitar to get the best sound out of it.
Correct.
But then on the opposite end of it, there's the Edge, who is pulling all these beautiful sounds and notes out of the digital, the produced side of
the
playing guitar.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. And just thinking about Jack talking about how you can't hide when you've got less effects
Correct.
on your pedal board.
Correct. Correct.
You are stripped bare and shown to the world.
That's where you're at.
And it's interesting to me thinking about the way that you approach the blending process with that in mind as well. That you are very, it sounds like you are very forward about what it is that's in the glass, what it is that's in the bottle.
No question.
But still creating something that is so unique to your product, your blend. Where did the final product of 3 Chord hit? How did that happen? Was it just a eureka moment, or were you kind of like going, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that? What was that process like for you all?
Okay, so in Ann Arbor, where our master distiller is, he says, I want to take you to this club and we're going to do some taste profiles. Let's go through and test some bourbons.
Sure.
I'm the first guy that's going to tell you in a spirits company that I'm learning something new every day. I know how to drink.
Yeah.
I can drink whiskey and I can like it and not like it and all those other things and talk about it. But I of all the people in the company, I know the very least. And sure. I keep asking them because I want to learn. I love knowledge. I learn all the time. I love that. So we went to this bar, and there was about 6 of us. And the bartender, it was close, so they pour different pours. Well, let's try this one. So these guys, they're like, big. I'm taking a little sip of it going, no, that's too sweet, or no, this is too harsh. They go, that's a hug. Okay, too much hug. I don't like that. Or this one's way too sweet, or, oh, I don't like the nose on this. I don't like. So we go through about 17 of these. Okay, we get to the end. Bartender pours it. I look at it. Take a nose. Take a sip. I look at Ari. I go, that's the one. That is exactly what I want. I said, why didn't you do that first? He goes like this. He looks at the bartender and says, why did you have to pour him the 16-year-old Hirsch? So I said, no. That's what I want. And then Ari just went, oh my God, he was taking. So that's what we were trying to achieve with the very first one. So believe it or not, I actually knew what I wanted, and everybody agreed. They all said that would be something because it's got that vanilla and. And we're a young company, so we just started with our first blend. Then we went to our 12-year reserve, which got a 94 rating, which is spectacular. Then we got the rye. Now we got a strange collaboration. The other thing I wanted to do too with the spirits company is I wanted to make it a full service spirits company. I just didn't want to have one product.
Right.
So I'm going to take you back a step on this because this is fun and people like to hear how the name came about. Okay. So I kept coming up with all these goofy names, and they were all taken. And steel bending bourbon was awful. That was my very first one. That was a bad idea to begin with. So we're going through these titles, and I'm getting really depressed, and I'm wondering if I should even be doing this, right? And my trademark attorney says, the problem you're having is that the best one didn't happen yet. And I thought about it and went, okay. He goes, yeah, the best one just hasn't happened. So I went to sleep. I woke up the next day. First thing in the morning, I went, 3-chord bourbon. 3 chords and the truth.
3 chords
integrity.
And the truth, absolutely.
I want a company that has integrity. I want to encourage sipping and conversation.
Sure.
Not that there's anything wrong with jumping on tables and everything else, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to respect the moment, sip, enjoy conversation. So he says, let me make a few checks here and I'll get back to you. And I was able to get it. And I just couldn't believe it. And then we got Amplify Rye. And then Whiskey Drummer. When I heard the true story about what Whiskey Drummer is, what a whiskey drummer is, Prohibition, ends, and then the guy's going down the street with a giant drum, banging and going, whiskey is now being served. Whiskey Drummer.
Fabulous. That's incredible.
And I cleared that one too. I couldn't believe that wasn't taken.
Sure.
So I'm very fortunate,
What was your initial trajectory like? I mean, I know that you said that you wanted to be full service, but was there any point where you said, I want this specific bourbon product, I want another one to come out that's older, appeals to
Correct.
A different audience? What were your thoughts as you were kind of getting everything off the ground?
Yes, I'll tell you exactly what they were. Even though the Hirsch, I believe, was the best bourbon that we had that night, and that's exactly what I wanted. That was exactly what I want. So of course, now, are you going to get a 16-year-old bourbon, to taste? Okay, there's some complications with that. Anyway,
Yeah, of course.
So what I wanted an introductory product. And I thought, let's start easy. Let's start with a low-proof blend. Let's just start with it. Let's start somewhere. Because the hardest thing about anything, writing a song, is starting. Putting a band together, starting. You know that. Hardest thing about doing a podcast, you got to start.
Got to start.
Right? And then fall where it falls and go where it needs to go. So we started with the blend. And what I wanted to do too is I wanted women, and I know there's bourbon clubs for women, I want them to enjoy it. I know a lot of times if the hug is too much, it pushes people away. And I also wanted a bourbon that could be used for drinks too, cocktails, even though I like it neat. That's my favorite thing. So that was the trajectory. Start with the blend. And I told them right after, I says, guys, this is good and it's working for me, but we need to kick it up. Let's kick it up.
Right.
I want a big hug,
I apologize. My cat came to visit. What are you doing?
I like it.
He likes. So I just started a full-time remote position this week, and he thinks that when I'm out here working, that's his time to come and be with me. So any time I come out here now, it's Berlioz's space, and I'm just
think it was
visiting.
the bourbon in the glass was what he was coming out for.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a little taste of it.
Apologies for the interruption.
No worries. It's good. I like it. It's great. So that was the idea. Then even when we had the 12-year-old, the 12-bar reserve, I says, guys, I want a big Kentucky. I want a big, even though there's Kentucky in the 12-year, and there's some Kentucky in the blend too as well. I says, I want a Kentucky Owl. I want a Hirsch. And I got to tell you, Whiskey Drummer, to me, I think we really, really nailed it. I believe. I think it's a spectacular bourbon. Spectacular.
It seems like people are definitely in agreement with you on that too. It seems like it's just been nothing but praise for Whiskey Drummer, and definitely applaud you all for that. And I still have not gotten to try it yet.
Oh, I
Still
wish you would
not
have had
got
it
to.
before this. So I'm telling you, uh, I don't have to say anything. It sells itself. I can't. We can't get enough. We can't keep enough
Sure.
in. I love the review we got. They gave us, there was two negative reviews. One is it costs a little more than I would like to spend. The other one is I can't get it. So if that's a negative reviews, I'll take
That's
them all day long.
sure. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know.
But yeah, no, if any chance of a sample being sent, please,
Well, I'll make sure of it. I'll
yeah,
make sure
please.
of
I
it.
appreciate that.
I'll get you a sample. You should have
We'll
that.
yeah, we'll do a tasting when this episode comes out as well, and
Hmm.
do a little follow up for sure.
Yeah,
But
you'll love it.
oh, I'm extremely excited to get to try it. So
But that leads me to one thing I want to add to this too, is that
sure.
when the company began, I have a very soft spot for in my heart for musicians and the struggles that
Oh,
they
of
have.
course.
And with COVID, which made it even more extreme, you go to the club, you usually bring your guitar, your sticks, you come in there, the doors open, you do a sound check, people come in, you get paid, you leave.
Right.
Doors closed, can't get in, right? So
Yeah.
even before that happened, I wanted to do a give back program, and we started one what's called a music ambassadorship through Three Chord, and that started from day one. And we were doing during COVID, doing tip jars for performances on Zooms
Yeah,
and things like
that's
that. We
right.
were doing Three Chord stages before COVID,
Yeah.
which we'll do once they open up the bars and stuff, where we pay for the entertainment, pay for the band, and then they serve Three Chord Bourbon there. So we shake each other's hands. We try to get our message across, and we're involved with blues societies. I found out that Son House didn't have a gravestone. I mean, this how could this even be in this?
Wow.
But yeah,
I didn't
so
even know that.
they were able to get a gravestone for Son House, and just things like that are important, to me. And I want the company to be very successful. I'd love to see it be a $500 million company or whatever,
Sure.
but I don't want to wait until that, God willing, to give a give back. I want it to start immediate, and that's
There,
what we do.
there sounds like this overwhelming sense of preservation almost,
Hmm.
right? Not
It
just
has to.
with, yeah, not just with history, but with those who are working to create something for themselves in
Absolutely.
this day and age. And
Well, you have
it,
to. There's not enough united. It's called the United States. Let's unite people. Don't ignite. Unite people. I always said that. It's always better to give a gift to somebody than to receive one. When you give a gift, you feel so good.
yeah,
Help people.
hmm
There should be more music. Music was taken out of the schools. I mean, the arts should be everywhere. It makes people feel good.
I
How many
agree.
people that you run into? I'm 65 years old. I've been playing professionally. When I started Rick Derringer, I just turned 22. I was 21 years old.
Sure.
And from that day forward, how many times people come up and go, when I hear that song that you did, it reminds me, it helped me through this, helped me through that. I got divorced when I heard it, or, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of methods.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's important to me.
You also have had the opportunity to write for so many incredible musicians as
Hmm.
well, and you're married to a wonderful performer
Sure.
too.
Hmm.
Um, it's so. Let me find the right way to phrase this.
Sure.
That feeling of the stars aligning, of
Mhm.
everything coming into place, and you just go, got it, we're good, and you just kind of go from there. Did you ever feel that? Did you ever get that sense?
Mhm.
And I know that we talked about the aha moments with recordings, but did you just ever feel like you were ready to just power through it
Mhm.
and to just continue doing what you were doing no matter what?
Sure, but along the line, you take a few punches. It always happens, but
Sure.
it starts and ends with one thing: the I Ching. When I was about 14 years old, I'm writing a book, and all this stuff is in the book, but much more detail. When I was 14 years old, I had a girlfriend that went to California from Cleveland. She came back. She goes, "There's two things I want to tell you that I found out in California are great. Number one is an avocado, lettuce, tomato mayonnaise, Swiss cheese, rye bread sandwich. She says, if you have one of these, it's going to be one of the greatest things in the world. I went, wow, great. And she made me one. I go, that was fantastic. Then she says, I discovered a book. It's called the I Ching, and it can predict your future. It could put you on the path, a spiritual path of goodness. And it teaches you how to be the superior man, even though you never get there, but you just keep trying to attain that, right?
Sure.
So we threw the coins and did it, and she did a little bit of it. I put the book away for a while. I brought it back, and it's much more in detail in my book. I won't go into it because it's pretty remarkable that it happened.
Sure.
But if it wasn't for the spiritual learning from that book, I don't believe I would ever gotten to where I am today. It's all on account of that.
That's an incredible thing to be able to look back and go, that was it.
Yeah.
That was the thought. That was the moment. And just knowing that everything was not necessarily uphill, but in a positive trend.
Sure.
For you at that point. I'm really sorry.
The cat's great. I love that.
At this point, I don't know. Like I was thinking, maybe I'll have to cut out the initial part of it. But
no, leave it in there.
He's just made himself known.
That's cool. He's hanging. He's hanging out.
This was so we I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. As of 3 weeks ago, we welcomed our first child.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We welcomed our daughter into the world, and the space that is now her nursery was my studio where I'd go and record the podcast. And that was, where I got to be creative. And, I always knew that I was going to have to forfeit that when our first child came. And so I retreated to the new studio, which is our garage. And it was initially the cat's space too. So I feel like I'm invading their territory, their
You're
kingdom.
getting moved out, by the way. Yeah,
exactly. But he is very happy that I'm out here as much as I am.
I see that. No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful.
I love that.
Anyway, back on topic. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's talk about speaking of this upwards and onwards trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
You're wanting to continue to innovate while still being true to the roots of bourbon, tradition. Absolutely.
Correct.
So what does the future of steel bending look like to you?
The future, I think, is exploring even more things like cognac, different barrel systems, different barrel programs of all different types of things. We're doing a honey barrel with a great, who has a great story as well, with this guy that loves bees, and he has a real job, but he became a bee person, and we're using his barrels, and we're doing bourbon in honey barrels, and I mean, it's wide open. And I'm not afraid of anything. I'm really not afraid. If somebody goes, well, that's kind of like, that's too cute or whatever. Yeah, you try it and you let me know. Okay? Bill
Mead's had success with it. So,
yeah. Listen, it all comes down, any great distiller, historic distiller will tell you one thing. The most important thing is, what does it taste like? That's it. Bottom line.
For sure.
You could be clever, you could be cute, you could try all kinds of different things like that. You could try whatever it is. That's not what we do. We're just trying to create a great product for everyone. We want to sip and engage conversation.
What's your bourbon consumption and music creation relationship? Any?
Well, let's see.
Any at all?
What does that mean?
Well, do you find yourself getting more inspired to write and play music the more that you've had to drink? Yeah.
No, I'll tell you, no. One thing I never did is on stage, I never playing live, I would never drink while I'm on stage. But as soon as the show would be done, I would drink and maybe have cigarettes. When I smoked, I used to smoke a pack a day, but only at night after the gig, right?
Right.
So I would never drink before. Even recording, I don't like drinking at all. I'll tell you a little story. I made this record in, I can't remember now, probably about 10 years ago. Oh, no, maybe more than that. Anyway, finished mixing it, was really happy with it. It was great. And the engineer is a great engineer. He's this English guy, and he goes, shall we have a drink? Listen. I go, great. I go, you like grappa? He goes, sure. So I started pouring the grappa. He goes, let's listen to it. So I cranked it up. I was in the back lounge, and we were drinking it. And as we're drinking it, I'm listening to the record, I'm going, oh my God, this is horrible. It sounds horrible. It's too fast. The tempos are all off. Oh my God. Because your metabolism was changing.
Absolutely.
I was getting ripped. I mean, really ripped. And so was he. It was terrible. I was so depressed. I went back into the house. I think I screwed the record up. The whole record is horrible. But then in the morning when I woke up, it sounded great. So I learned then that no, never listen, never drink and follow that. No.
One of your worst enemies is you inebriated. in any sense of the.
Well, here's the thing too, is that when you're playing as a band, and I call it the buddy system. When I go in to record a track, I play a lot of instruments. A lot of times I play them all. But when I'm playing with like a drummer, it's the buddy system. We play together, same time.
Absolutely.
I make a mistake, we go from the beginning. If he makes a mistake, we go to the beginning. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So not having that safety net makes you, it's scary. It's
hyper aware.
It's cool. Yeah. I've done some really cool stuff that way. I really like that. So, I don't know, just part of me, that's what I like.
Are you excited? And I'm sure you are, as I am too, to get back out and start playing again once things settle down.
Well, I am, but truthfully, I'd rather just be Brian Wilson. I'd rather just be home writing and producing. Brian to me is a genius. That's another one. Instead of liking the band or whatever, I like Brian Wilson. I like Sam Phillips. George Martin. He go on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
So I don't really. I know the people like it, and I don't mind. I like going out and playing, but I'd rather just stay home in my. If I turn this around, this is one studio. I have another one in another house, but this one is more of like a writing suite.
Sure.
And it's a capsule. I got everything. I got keyboards here. I got guitar here, and it's controls, microphones.
Who are you? We of course talked about Jack White, but who are you listening to these days? Maybe
Pavarotti.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Pavarotti.
Oh well.
Yeah, I'm real diverse.
That's a different headspace.
Yeah, I go into all kinds of directions like that. I try not to listen to too much of what's going on at the moment. I like to listen to all different diverse type music.
Sure.
Because I don't really want to be influenced in any way by anything. If that makes any sense. I'd rather just let it be background.
Sure.
Noise.
Sure.
Sound. Bill Evans. I love jazz, so I love Count Basie, Duke Ellington. Bill Evans. Forget about it. So that stuff I love.
I'm re-entering my Miles Davis phase.
Oh, it's the best.
Which is it's the easiest phase to slip back into, because it's so familiar. I mean, same with any favorite artist. Once it becomes familiar, you just kind of you find your way back to it, and it's a nice little happy place for a while.
Well, here's the thing with the Miles Davis. Why can't I think of his name now? Since I like Sam Phillips and Brian Wilson, all these people. Who's the guy that made a couple records for Miles that I love so much? Who's the guy? Evans is his last name's Evans, right?
Yes.
I can't think of his name right now.
I can't either.
But that guy.
Yeah.
You're talking Sketches of Spain in a Silent Way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can crawl inside of that big time. Yeah. And Miles was a guy that taught you to. It's not what you play; it's what you leave out. So those little spaces, those little gaps of air of no sound, is big.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. I think that we've kind of naturally come to the end of our little space here together.
But I got to give my names to my team.
Yes, please do. I totally forgot about that. Let us know who are
Yeah,
your
here's our team.
cohorts.
It starts with my daughter, Hannah Giraldo, who's actually I just had her join the company about 2 months ago, and she does all the social media and everything like that, and she's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal, gifted songwriter, top line writer, melody, just super talented, great
Wow.
actress. So if you check her out, Hannah Giraldo, she has a YouTube channel, all these things. She
Sure.
does these skits, and she just did a commercial for Three Chord,
No kidding.
which is great
Huh.
too. Yeah, so she's super cool. Tony DeYoung, who to me I believe is a genius. He's phenomenal. He knows so many things. So I call him Professor Tony. Everybody gets a nickname at some point. I think we got Ryan Gill, who's a foot soldier, phenomenal. This guy is brilliant as well. Michael Nanula, social media stuff. Laura Webb, one of our foot soldiers too. Megan Reckling, Ari Zussmans, our this master distiller. Rich Jones, phenomenal, out of Jersey. Debbie Lanoy, who does the office work. Brian Canning, who is, co-founder with me. Barry Bookin, who's an agent and who set this one up too. Like that tremendous guy. He's so nice. I call him Evil Barry. He's the nicest guy. Anytime you call him, you go, "Hello, Neil." That's why I call him Evil Barry.
I
Then we
couldn't
got
believe
Bess.
that the booking agent actually had booking in his name.
I know.
I'm sure he gets it all the time, but
All the time. Yeah, Barry Bookin. It's almost like a fake name. It's like a South Park name or something. Then Bass Reeves, who's a really interesting guy. He's a songwriter at one time. He's involved in the music ambassadorship too. Great guy. And then Paul Nanula, who's part of the Nula family, which a lot of those guys are all part of our company as well. So
sure. Wonderful.
great team.
You've got a great group of people behind you, and with that vision for the future of Three Chord as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely fantastic, and
Yeah, I
can't
love
wait
them.
to see where you all continue to grow with Three Chord. Thank you so much. I could pick your brain all day about music. I truly could, but I do have a baby that I should
Yeah.
probably go
What's
see.
the exact birth date of the baby? When? was she-
10/15/20.
August 15th?
No, no, no.
October.
October 15th.
Oh, wow. October 15th. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it was 10/15/20, which just we were like, we'll hopefully never forget that. But
That's phenomenal. I love that. 10, 15, 20. Good for you.
Yeah.
I love that.
it
Yeah.
was 2:50 a.m.
2:50 a.m.
Yes, she came into the world, and
I like this.
here we are now.
Oh, you're going to love it. Let me just tell you this. Children are great. I've always wanted children ever since I was a child.
Yeah.
I have two daughters. I was surrounded with females. My housekeeper's female. My dogs are female. It just went on and on. But let me just tell you, being a grandparent, everything they say about that, you're a long way from that. Let me tell you, my friend.
I would hope
But
so.
being a grandparent, you like them more than you like your children.
No.
Not really. I'm
my
kidding.
my dad is just, and he just loves
heaven.
being a grandfather. I mean, like he is just over the moon about it. By the way, he told me, because he's a big Neil Giraldo fan as well. He told me to tell you hello.
Oh, that's cool.
His name's David.
Oh, well, David, I think hi. You guys sit together and sip on some bourbon together? Or?
All the time. All
I
the time.
love
He's who, when I talk about, origin stories, I guess he is really who introduced my love of music and my love of bourbon,
Oh,
because
nice.
he was a Maker's drinker for the longest time, or if it wasn't Maker's that was sitting on the bar, it was Woodford, and then he'd kind of switch it up here and there. But once I started getting into bourbon, I started going, Dad, but have you ever had Elijah Craig?
Which is a wheat beer. Yeah,
Yeah.
more wheatish. Yeah.
Yeah, but just in different aspects of it. In the same way that you tell people about a new album that they've got to listen to, or a new artist that they've discovered. As soon as I started getting into bourbon, I was like, oh, you got to try this, and this, and it completely changed the game for him too.
Well, you're gonna love the relationship with your father, with his granddaughter. You're gonna
absolutely.
love it. The
Absolutely.
idea of sipping together, and then when they start talking, and oh man, it's just it is really the best. You're the actual people I'm going for the conversation,
For
enjoy
sure.
life. You just had a
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
Experience it. Celebrate it,
And we'll do plenty of that while drinking 3 quart as well. Sitting
That's
together.
exactly right.
So
And I'll get you to sample the Whiskey Drummer,
please.
but I'm going to tell you this. It's going to blow your mind.
I believe you.
It
fully
is going to
believe you.
blow your mind. I tell you, I like Kentucky Owl. I love Kentucky Owl. But I love Whiskey Drummer more. It is phenomenal.
I'm gonna tell Dixon that them's fighting words. So
Yeah. There's room for everybody.
Oh, of
No,
course.
but tell them I really enjoy the product. Kentucky Owl is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Really phenomenal. Scott, I wanted to go after that profile too. I told Professor Tony when we had it at a place called Rarities. You ever hear of that place in New York?
Sounds familiar. Yes.
It's in the Lot Palace Hotel.
Okay.
And the guy there, Justin. Yeah, I think it's Justin. He tried our 12 bar and he goes, boy, you got something here like that. And then Professor Tony says, give us some Kentucky Owl. I want to show. He calls me Papa G. He says, let's Papa G. I tried it. So I took a sip and I went, I like that. Tony, we got to get something like this. And so it was his inspiration, your friend.
That's
there
incredible.
at Kentucky
Yeah.
Owl. So,
Wonderful. Neil, thank you so much for sitting down with me, my friend. This has been wonderful.
Thanks
Really
for
enjoyed
inviting me,
getting
Barry.
absolutely great getting to chat with you about not just bourbon but music. Like I said, I could shoot the breeze all day about music.
And then I can start giving you fatherly advice. That comes next. So with
That
daughters,
was hey, I'm here for it, man. Neil, thank
That'll
you
be
so
the next
much,
one.
buddy.
thanks, Barry. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Have a good night, pal.
Once again, a huge thank you to Neil for sitting down with me and chatting about bourbon and music and just being an awesome, genuine person in general. I'm so thankful that I got to have this opportunity. This was really kind of set up, or this wouldn't have been initiated without listener of the show, friend of the show, Donnie Webb. You might also know him as @TheLinux on some of those live streams and stuff like that. And I really appreciate it. If you guys have anything else that you would like to hear from me, I guess, in this kind of vein, reach out. If you have some good ideas for interviews, you have some ideas for guests of the show, let me know. I'm always open to reaching out to the community and bringing new people into this space. It's always so much fun for me, making new connections, meeting new friends. And I cannot, again, thank you enough. Neil, what a spectacular time. What a great time we got to have together. How about some tips and bits before we wrap this up? It's our recommendation segment of the show where I let people know whether or not they should check out some things that I've been enjoying recently. And this week, I haven't recommended this before, and I feel like it's a good time for it, but... And it's because they're getting into their second season, which is very good as well. But their first season, it's a show called Finding Drago. And basically, the whole premise behind the show is that there's this book that one of the hosts found that was kind of the what happened to Ivan Drago. Drago? What did I say earlier? I think I said Drago earlier. Ivan Drago was probably Drago after the events of Rocky IV. And you wouldn't think that this story would have the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the zigs and zags that it does, but it's so well crafted in its story and is so much fun, and getting to the heart of this mystery behind who the author was for this book is so rewarding. And I promise you, once you get to the end of it, you won't regret it. And as I said before, to their second season, which is called Finding Desperado, and I'm not going to get too much into that one because the story is still kind of developing, but it is another kind of lost tale to history mystery. And I think that they're doing some really, really great things. So go check out Finding Drago, or Drago, however you want to pronounce it, and its follow-up season, Finding Desperado, and just report back It's a great listen. I really enjoy it, and I think you all will as well. That does it for this week's episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow up with me personally, I am at PRitter1492 on all social media channels. If you want to follow up with the show, it's at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on the iTunes podcast app. And this week we do have a new review. And by the way, if you leave us a review, I'll actually read it out here on air. Good, bad, ugly, supportive, detrimental, whatever. I will actually read it out here on the show because why the heck not? We can only take ourselves too seriously, I suppose. But this one comes from K Slacker. The title, not douchey, 5 stars. There are many podcasts that I listen to that make me a better man and push me. This is not one of them. Solid start there, K Slacker. This is just enjoyable mind candy, and I look forward to it all week. Perry and Swan are very enjoyable to listen to. It's difficult to talk about bourbon without being douchey and snobby or drunk and incoherent. But they pull it off in a way that feels like chilling with your friends. They each have distinct opinions that are definitely not quote-unquote bought by distillers. Sometimes I accidentally learn some things and become better anyway. K Slacker, thank you so much for leaving that review. Actually, one of my favorite reviews that we've gotten on the show. He really started punching a little low, and by the time he kind of punched evenly, I would say. I don't know. Regardless, thank you for that review. You can find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. I think there's a sale going on there at the moment. Might be over by the time this episode comes out, but I also might, we could extend it to like a Black Friday sale. I mean, why the heck not? Give people something to look for their holiday shopping. Get some bourbon apparel, some bourbon merchandise for their friends, family, and bourbon drinkers alike. You can also join our Facebook group. You just head to facebook.com and search for This Is My Bourbon Group. That's where our pregame chats, the questions for them come from. And I ask those every Monday before we record, and then we answer them on patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. More on that in a minute. You can send us questions or comments or thoughts or concerns to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. Love hearing from listeners of the show and respond to those letters here on air. I go live every Thursday evening, usually at youtube.com/thisismybourbonpodcast at about 8 o'clock Eastern time here in the United States. Oh gosh, what else? I know I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. Maybe the last thing is just Patreon. That's patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast, where you can become a supporter of the show for as little as $1 a month. And for as little as $5 a month, you get all of the bonus content that is associated with that website, but not limited to some of the higher tiers as well, where you can get things like free shirts. You get some exclusive chats, some info on what's coming up with the show, and also here very soon, we're going to be introducing a barrel pick tier, which I'm very excited for you guys to be a part of. So once again, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. And we appreciate everybody who is able to be a supporter of the show over there. And if not, we're just happy you guys are here. That does it for this week's episode. Next week, Swan's going to be back, and I can't wait to see him again, in person or over the phone. Who's to say? Once again, thank you to Neil Giraldo for sitting down with me for another excellent conversation on This My Bourbon Podcast. We will see you all next week. But until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.